Hey, this is Joel Edgerton. I am here with
David Michod.
We are going to walk you through the Battle of Agincourt shot by shot.
This is the very beginning. Falstaff here, taking it upon himself to lead a bunch of men on a kind of semi-suicide mission.
For the King and St. George!
I'll say, as soon as I put the helmet on, that's my stunt guy. No, that's not true.
That's true.
That's the Dauphin under his tent. That's the wonderful Rob Pattinson.
I think we did this stuff really early and then shot the reverses back down at the battlefield really early too, because we wanted that field for the most part to be pristine still. Timmy was there for a lot of it. Obviously we shot this stuff early in the piece too. We then steadily over the course of the next 2 weeks just completely destroyed that field, turned it into a stinking mud pile. We had a very clear idea of the sort of topography we wanted. I wanted a kind of an amphitheater kind of bowl in which it happened. I wanted to shoot the battle from human eye level, and that meant what I wanted was vantage points from up the sides of hills where you could look down on it. Here's an example of me wanting to get a sense of a stadium view of what's going on down there, but from human eye level.
If you could imagine in any shot that at any point the most resources we had, I think, were about 200 to 300 men.
The guys in full suits of armor, each suit takes 2 costumers half an hour to put on. So you can imagine what doing that to 280 guys. They were started, work at like 3 in the morning.
From then on, it's either the work of Andrew Jackson and the VisFX teams expanding that crowd or replicating sections of them, which becomes a bit of a puzzle when you're shooting, right? Because you're moving the same people to different parts of the field in order that you're not just creating them in the computer.
When the archers start firing their longbows, that stuff principally was done by Joel's brother, Nash Edgerton, to direct a kind of second unit where he shot the archers firing and he picked up some of the more very specific stunt pieces.
Well, we have this incredible stunt coordinator, Steve Dent, and they just have a way of training horses to lie down and pretend to be dead, horses that will rear during a battle. This is my stunt guy about to take a full frontal. Yes, it's funny, the very thing that would terrify me brings great joy to him. I think he took that wreck like 3 times.
No, I made George do it like 5 or 6 times. But I probably got it after 2 or 3.
Just want to put George through it.
I remember watching Steve Dent tell him I wanted him to do it again. George didn't realise that I was standing right behind him, and George was like, oh. For the most part, even when we were riding, we wanted to try and maintain a point of view in the battle as much as possible. We didn't want it to just descend into chaos. We knew, though, that once this clash happened, that for a little brief period, we were going to need to do that. And this is that bit. This is just mayhem. Once we got into the thick of the mud, that's pretty much where we stayed for, 10 horrible days.
There was a lot of planning going into how we were going to create the mud, and I think Steve Dent said to David, you wet that area of ground and give me a bunch of horses for like 20 minutes and I'll make you mud. It really became like half a foot or a foot deep of mud at some point.
In the heat, it started to stink too. That mud smelled really bad.
Being in the armour and fighting in that mud was really a case of no acting required. People falling on top of each other and horses trampling around in it. You really had to keep your head on the swivel and make sure that you knew from the choreography was going to remain relatively safe. But as you know, if you put mud under any situation, it adds a certain amount of unpredictability. Well, this is part of a conceit here, is we wanted to at least be able to pick off Falstaff, recognise him within the battle. So we created the conceit that he'd been slammed by a mace in order that we could believably unmask him at that point. We could pick him off and visually track him through the battle. That was like a full day of just rolling around in the mud for me.
Once you get stuck in mud wearing a full suit of armour, it's incredibly difficult to get out. So most people who died at Agincourt died from being crushed in a stampede and drowned in mud.
Quite often I'd be wearing the full metal suit, and then once we were getting into the actual fight, everyone had a polyurethane equivalent to the armour.
And then this is like the only shot where I put the camera up on a crane in an unnatural position.
I've always been a firm believer, and I followed David's line on this too, is you put the camera where it needs to be and try not to draw attention to itself too much.
We had 2 weeks to shoot this battle. We probably could have used 5, but one of the advantages of it, I think, is that we had to move fast and we had to move energetically. I think you can feel it. The battle feels chaotic, in part because we had to shoot it chaotically.
I hope you enjoyed our shot-by-shot account of the battle.
Just watch the movie. Netflix.
On me!